G'day guys, welcome to another Hang Loose Recluse production. In today's video, I'm going to talk about what happened at East Palestine in Ohio, USA, with the toxic chemical spill that went on there. I'll just read out some of the information that I've got here. It's unbelievable. Now, if the mainstream media don't question what's going on in Australia, it's going to eventually happen to them with this sort of stuff. Because what's going on, there was an arrest of reporters for asking questions in the US. Now, that is enough of a story of itself. And even our mainstream media should be covering that. Why are reporters in the US being arrested for this, for asking questions? I'll show you that video in a minute. Quite interesting. But first, we'll talk about this. I just feel compelled to do this because I can't see much about this in Australia, whether the mainstream's covering or not. I don't follow the mainstream media, so I don't know, but I do listen to them when I travel in the car, but I haven't heard anything on the news networks that I listen to. Anyway, so yeah, I'll just read out this screenshot. Breaking. Vinyl chloride, a deadly chemical, has contaminated the Ohio River due to a train derailment. East Palestine, Ohio. The Ohio River, which serves over 10% of the US population, has reportedly become contaminated due to chemicals from the East Palestine train derailment. The river supplies public drinking water to over 5 million people, in addition to industries all the way to West Virginia, affecting over 30 million people who live in the Ohio River basin. They detained a reporter trying to do a live report in East Palestine, Ohio, who was asking questions about the chemical train derailment. He must have been over the target. So obviously with these controlled media groups, the questions mustn't have aligned with the narrative that they wanted to talk about. So it looks like he's been arrested. I'll just get some more information here. Next slide. You are looking at a toxic cocktail of deadly chemicals purposely being burned off in East Palestine after a train derailment. Authorities burned off vinyl chloride, which is toxic and carcinogenic, and released harmful and dangerous hydrogen chloride and phosgene into the air, if I said that correctly. Next slide. In this next slide, it says that rail companies block safety rules before Ohio derailment. February 8, 2023, Norfolk Southern helped convince government officials to repeal brake rules, and corporate lobbyists watered down hazmat safety regulations. It's catastrophic. 10% of the US population, over 30 million people, live in the Ohio River basin. The Ohio River itself provides drinking water to over 5 million people. Next slide. A screenshot tweet from a guy called Mike Flynn says, "This is very serious. To follow on this," obviously his credentials, "our government not reporting on a massive man-made disaster is I don't know how to say that word. Egregious. I'm dumb. Sorry. Our government not reporting on a massive man-made disaster is wrong." It's in response to the bottom section, and it says, "I haven't seen one word from President of the United States or Pete Buttigieg on the industrial catastrophe in East Palestine, Ohio, which borders Biden's home state of Pennsylvania. Very little coverage. Odd silence from the climate alarmists when faced with tangible problems." So no word from any of them. I haven't heard anything much about this in Australia. When is the mainstream media going to report about this? This is turning into a big story, guys, because there was a documentary on, a show on Netflix called White Noise in 2022. And the weirdest thing about the white noise situation was that this actually imitated life, art imitating life. So if you look at white noise and see the description of white noise, it says, "Their life is disrupted, however, when a cataclysmic train accident casts a cloud of chemical waste over the town. This airborne toxic event forces a massive evacuation, which leads to a major traffic jam on the highway. Jack drives to a gas station to refill his car, where he's inadvertently exposed to the cloud. The family and numerous others are forced into quarantine at a summer camp. Murray supplies Jack with a small palm-sized pistol to protect himself against the more dangerous survivalists in the camp. One day, chaos ensues when families desperately try to escape the camp. The Gladneys are almost able to make it out, but in the end, their car floating in the river. After 9 days, the family is able to leave the camp. However, since Jack was briefly exposed to the chemical waste, his fear of death becomes exacerbated." So they created a movie about a catastrophic chemical train derailment and then released it right before it happened in real life. And it says here, "Ohio chemical train derailment movie thread. A coincidence, or are they predicting the future?" Very bizarre. Next slide. We'll show you a news report on this in the US. Let's play that one now, wherever I can fucking find it. There it is. And shortly we will show you the arrest video.
We now know 3 more chemicals that were on board the Norfolk Southern train that derailed here in East Palestine just over a week ago. And we're being told that some of those chemicals are dangerous.
We basically nuked a town with chemicals so we could get a railroad open.
The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency sent a letter to Norfolk Southern stating that ethylene glycol monobutyl ether, ethylexyl-acrylate, and isobutylene were also in the rail cars that were derailed, breached, or on fire. Caggiano says ethylexyl-acrylate is especially worrisome. He says it's a carcinogen, and contact with it can cause burning and irritation in the skin and eyes. Breathing it in can irritate the nose, throat, and cause coughing and shortness of breath. Isobutylene is also known to cause dizziness and drowsiness when inhaled.
I was kind of surprised that when they quickly told the people they can go back home, but then said if they feel like they want their homes tested, they can have them tested. I would have far rather they did all the testing.
Caggiano says it's possible some of these chemicals could still be present in homes and on objects until you clean them thoroughly.
There's a lot of what ifs, and we're going to be looking at this thing 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line and wondering, gee, cancer clusters could pop up, well water could go bad.
Caggiano recommends anyone who's in the East Palestine area get a health checkup. He says get a record of where your health stands now so that moving forward you have documentation of any possibly related effects to the train derailment.
All right, now let's watch the arrest video here. You can probably find this for yourselves. I'm noticing that it's after maybe the questions have been raised. The police are actually now interacting with the reporter. You'll hear at the end of the video there's another reporter there and they speak of trying to ask questions, but they don't say what questions they were asking. So there's a bit of a scuffle there. There's another lady filming, but it was some sort of press conference. But a reporter got arrested. Now, if our mainstream media doesn't question this, they obviously have, we know they're controlled. The mainstream media is controlled in this country, in Australia. It's controlled everywhere, really. But this should be an uproar in the mainstream media. This guy's getting arrested.
This is bad. Oh my God. You guys, this is bad.
Journalist.
Stop.
Stop
this. Stop this. Stop, y'all. Stop. You want to get this. This is so bad.
Put your name on your back.
This is bad.
At what point do mainstream media
You guys, he's a national correspondent. You
stand
cannot
up and
do
question
this.
authorities over stuff like this? I mean, where's the accountability in the authorities? I mean, what are they arresting this guy for?
About doing their jobs.
Oh my God, I cannot believe this.
She's doing his job, apparently.
This is horrible.
This is what it's like to be a reporter in
Evan, I'm so sorry.
Mainstream media
Evan, I'm
workers,
sorry.
it's coming your way soon, I suppose. Toe the line or get arrested. Look.
Can you please loosen this? Because
And that's why they do toe the line, because they're all living in fear of their jobs and getting arrested.
This is horrible.
Mainstream media has gone to the dogs.
Evan, I'm
This guy obviously
sorry.
went a bit rogue and they didn't like it. Hear what he says up here.
This is horrible.
doing a live shot gets you arrested in there in 2024. I got arrested because I was trying to do a live report about what people need to know.
And he's been here all week.
I've been here all
You
week.
can't do this to him. This is wrong.
Yep, media scurry takes off, and interesting. So we'll go to the next video. This is another report. Apparently, the media is now admitting something about this. They're saying something like, this is some dialogue here. It says, media admits that East Palestine, Ohio, train derailment and chemical release was predicted in Netflix film White Noise. From interviewing an extra from the film to reporters jokingly calling this one of the weirdest coincidences ever, to noting the movie's script is practically identical to what has happened in real life. So this now makes it even more obvious it was staged and planned, and the local media is even subtly admitting to it while mocking those watching. So let's see what this story is about, and we'll press play now.
Good evening. Super light buzz today. Definitely no anxiety over here. This story is one of the weirdest coincidences ever. People living in eastern Ohio evacuated their homes last week following a train derailment and chemical spill that sent toxic chemicals into the air. The crazy thing is, they did the same thing for a fictional disaster film a year ago.
So the same area. This is what happened in the film. It happened a year later. Some of the people in the town were extras.
All right, I'm going to break this down here. The movie is called White Noise. It came out on Netflix in November. It stars Adam Driver. The premise of the movie is this: a freight train derails and explodes, and families have to flee the toxic fallout. The film was shot all over Ohio. It features extras in vacation scenes, including a family from New Palestine. Ben Ratner and his family filmed a scene where they were sitting in a traffic jam of people who were trying to evacuate. Then, last week's train derailment in real life and fire happened less than a mile from their home. They had to leave for real.
Yeah.
Isn't this wild?
Yes.
What? Yeah, the simulation is
interesting.
not even good. It's crazy. They stayed at town over a while authorities conducted a controlled burn to get rid of those chemicals. The EPA says there's no longer a risk to people in that area, but the family is not so sure. They told CNN they are not thinking that they're ever going to go back.
Man, at least they weren't in Don't Look Up.
That's true. Could have ended a little bit differently.
Yep, there's the mocking part. Mainstream media just getting laughs. It's not serious. Doesn't matter. Laugh it off. The authorities said it's okay.
No, thank you.
In the sky.
I saw that.
Let's not worry about it.
Adam Driver. It's okay.
Yeah. White Noise is also the name of my podcast, actually.
Is it?
He's funny and there's some good scenes, but yeah, it was a little too much.
Yep, absolutely mocking typical mainstream media. They're paid to do that to try and make it lighthearted for the people at home. It's okay, guys. Just laugh it off.
We also have the story tonight of an East Palestine
Here's another one.
who was in a recent movie that was eerily similar to the train derailment that happened.
First News reporter Abigail Cloutier.
So they're normalising the fact that it was eerily similar and just passing it off. Oh, it's just coincidence. Whatever. Let's check it out.
On White Noise, a movie that was about a train accident that caused a chemical leak. He never thought it would become his reality. Ratner is an extra in a traffic jam scene sitting in a line of cars trying to evacuate. The movie follows a family after a train hits a tanker truck, creating a chemical cloud. White Noise came out in 2022 and was shot around Ohio. Ratner is an extra in a shoot in Salem.
How do they do this?
And they had a space.
Very same town.
The plot of the movie is not lost on the East Palestine community.
Because there's
the irony.
Negative you can focus on. People are like, oh, how about this? It's kind of uncanny here, this movie.
Ratner tells me he tried watching White Noise again soon after the derailment.
Probably like 15 minutes in, I turned it off. It was not something that I was ready to watch yet.
The night of the fire, Ratner and his family were watching his kids' basketball game, and they weren't sure what was wrong at first. They live in what was the 1 mile evacuation zone. And it became clear they needed
It's an absolute bizarre story. Australian media is not talking about it. Well, as far as I know, they're not really talking about it. Surely this should be hitting Australia. It's a big event. I mean, when you look at the chemicals.
On East Palestine. His family does not want to move, but they worry about health concerns and property value.
You see your home as an investment for the future.
Yeah, it's sort of hush.
Take that investment from us. There needs to be.
Anyway, we'll see what's...
In East Palestine, Abigail Cloutier, WKBN 27 First News.
In East Palestine, Ohio.
Now we'll go to, I think, is it a TikToker or something like that? Oh, there was another TikToker going nuts, but I can't find that video. I'll just press play on this one. Press play.
In East Palestine, Ohio, my home and my business, separate buildings, are both located within throwing distance of the train derailment. And the water, the creek, is where most of the smell comes from. If you get closer to the creek, which runs through town, it stinks and it burns.
The EPA says it's okay.
My wife and 2 kids, we have an Airbnb we've been living out of since this happened last Friday. This is the first time I've been home in a week because I had to leave my 2 small dogs here. They're okay. I just I had to come feed them. We still have a mortgage on this house. We were pretty well paid off, well more than halfway paid off, but that was based on the value at the time. But it's worthless now because, who's going to buy a house next to a train wreck? I own Velez engines. The brakes in here. There's all the work in progress that I can't do. And this is the worst smelling part because it actually has a real ceiling. This is all customer stuff except that's one of my son's bikes. The creek's right my back door. You open it up, there it is. You know, and they got the guys in hazmat suits and respirators still back there cleaning it.
Right next to his house, basically.
We don't plan on coming back. My wife's a nurse, so she's not taking any chances with the chemicals, and just because we don't know, the side effects of.
But what does Australian media want to show you? The narrative. Not this narrative, another narrative. This is news.
I suppose.
But it's not being covered. I mean, look at the toxic plume there. I mean, look at the picture there. It's absolutely ridiculous that they're not doing anything about it, not talking about it here in this country. I just thought I'd make this little video just to, point out that, there's something's going on in the world that should be on our news. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that we can't see this sort of stuff or hear about it. I'll just read this last comment here that it's, I don't know where this is from, but it's a screenshot of something. I'll just read this out and here it goes. Shocking. Environmental disaster intentionally caused by federal government. A derailed train carrying many carloads of polyvinyl chloride was detonated on purpose in Palestine, Ohio. That's the last thing you'd ever want to do. That substance, when not cured, as was the case, is probably the worst carcinogen known to man. I think they wanted to cause a huge disaster, so they derailed the train on purpose, and then for no conceivable reason put explosives on the tanks and blew them up on purpose. A side comment here, something that is getting censored, but I have known about since the 80s, uncured polyvinyl chloride is bad. I found out about that after someone I knew had to walk into a cleanup scene and died of cancer within 2 months. You cannot expose yourself to uncured liquid PVC fumes no matter what. Cured, it is fine. Uncured, it's one of the worst things there is. I repeat, they derailed a train carrying perhaps the worst chemical cargo possible and then detonated every single car carrying that substance on purpose, right in the middle of the most prime farmland in the country. That's a clear and obvious act of war waged on the United States by the government. Clearly, obviously, the worst enemy of the United States is its own government. Stolen elections have consequences, and this is proof. This weather system is in fact the worst toxic waste known to man, put into the sky by the government of the United States. The environmental destruction will be incalculable, and this is not even being picked up by the mainstream media. Well, particularly in Australia anyway. I don't know how the US is going. There might be some more reports, which we just saw in that video. But that is absolutely ridiculous, folks, and I just felt like I have to do this as a hang loose recluse video to show some awareness to it in case there's people out there that don't even realise this happened. It's going to be a big thing, and it's going to go down in history. So, yeah, check it out, that White Noise thing on Netflix. But the truth is out there, and this is the truth. I brought you everything that I can in this video. I don't know about the purposefully detonating the stuff. You'd have to check that out. I just read that in a screenshot. But, I just tried to gather as much information for you because I think this needs to be brought to light. And so some of the Hang Loose Recluse subscribers that don't know about this might be interested in seeing that this is what's going on. Anyway, this has been another Hang Loose Recluse production. Thank you.
Massive train derailed Friday, 20 of them carrying hazardous materials as flames lit up the sky in northeastern Ohio.
The evacuation order is in place for anyone within a mile radius of the crash site.
These aren't storm clouds. This is the fucking shit! The fucking shit that burned off in East Palestine! This is not fucking storm clouds! Look at it!
I hope it is. This is horrible!
Because you can't get arrested because I was trying to do a live report about what people need to know.
Officials are claiming that the air and water are safe. Residents say they can still smell chlorine. They've complained about their eyes watering when they go outside, and one woman says the noxious air killed her chickens.
Out of nowhere, he just started coughing really hard and just shut down and went very fast.
Look at all these fucking crows. I'm not kidding. This is within 10 miles of East Palestine.
If you have not evacuated, please leave the area.
This has been another Hang Loose Recluse production. Thank you.